Barb and Peter, really glad to have you on the call. Thank you so much for making some time for this. Because I understand working through the financial fitness program that, Barb, you've been able to be a stay-at-home mum.
Yep, definitely. Life-changing.
Yeah, which is great. So, okay, so for our viewers and everything, just give me a little bit of background about both of you, professions, and where you're located.
We're located in Cairns, in North Queensland. I am the manager of a company called Rad Connect, which is the technical arm of Cairns Taxis, is probably the best way to describe it. So we look after everything in a taxi that makes it a taxi in Cairns. And I've been there it popped up the other day that I've been there for 19 years. So,
wow, that is huge.
Been there a while.
Congratulations. That is really, really an achievement.
Yeah, it is. In this day and age, when we watch the presentation, and I remember seeing the 45-year financial plan, how people with their income goes up and levels off and that. Remember when we first started watching that, they were saying, most people don't actually stay at one job anymore for any sort of real length of period of time. They're there for 5, 6, 7 years. Instead of being
2. It's now 2. If you were 18 months in a job, you are now the senior supervisor. 18 months.
I believe that. Yeah.
It's scary. 19 years, I had 5 professions.
Yeah. So, I've been there 19 years. I haven't always been the manager. I took over being manager about 17 years. I've been the manager.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Which is great. And you definitely would have seen a lot of changes during that time as well.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. We look after all the technology stuff that's in the cars. So the changes just there in technology have just been, massive.
And Barb, tell me a little bit about yourself.
So my background, I started electronics. I stepped into hospitality and made my way up the ladder and became an executive housekeeper. Then I stepped out from that redundancy. I saw 2 redundancies in that time. And I stepped out from that and started my own business in training room attendance. I did that for 3 years. Yeah. 3.5 years. Subcontracted to places, worked in prisons, subcontracting for laundry training. And then 2010, we had TJ. By that stage, we were decided that I would be an at-home mum. I still had the training business for a little while. I was a sole trader, so it depended really on me to do that training effectively. So at that point, I went, it's crunch time. I can't work this and have a 5-month-old baby, and we just couldn't gel it. Finished up the training business, and we really struggled financially for a long time. We went from 2 wages, earning thousands of dollars a week, to just over $1,000 a week. Yeah. And massive debt. Yeah, we really struggled. And then we were introduced to financial fitness. We just applied that information drastically to our lives and learned how to cut back and watch what we're spending. And it was amazing. We thought, look, we can't save a cent. We're spending everything we have. We are spending. There is nothing left.
Yeah.
And I just went, no, that's it. We have to save. And we
started to find a way.
Exactly.
Which is principle number 1. Pay yourself first.
Exactly. So started saving 10% and we were tithing 10%. So 20% of our income was no longer ours.
Yep.
From an income that we could barely live on. And so we it just changed everything. And it's amazing. We do that so comfortably now.
Yeah, that's right. And the compounding works for you. So being very, very intentional. And our program, works through that very intentional focus on what we need to do to make it work. Because the alternatives, as you pointed out, is decimation for the family. The consequences are huge. So it's important that to find a way and working through finding a way.
Yep. And we, that was our biggest arguments is where's the money? Why don't we have any money? Why can't we do things? So, and in the last 6-12 months, we've been able to repair stuff around the house. We've been able to do stuff to our car that needed to be done. That not that it wasn't getting serviced, it was getting serviced and basically maintained, but there was things that needed to be done. I'm an at-home mum, full-time at-home mum, right? Homeschooling our son.
How old is TJ now?
He's 10.
So what was one of the most important principles that you've been able to apply after going through the financial fitness program?
For me, Jerry and Polly talk about this. Stop getting financial advice from broke people. Get it only from those whose finances you want to emulate. So I was listening to myself.
As we do. We know everything.
Of course. And, as Jerry says, if it was my opinion, so it was right, of course.
Absolutely.
And I was listening to myself and I'm like, no, that's a good financial decision. And of course it wasn't. Or
It's a hard lesson to learn, that one, Peter.
It really is. But it took a long time. And yeah, I mean, that's probably the one that stands out for me, is because, yeah, I think that's a good idea. I should do that without seeking advice from a professional.
Yeah.
And, like we made some bad financial decisions and we're still paying for that. But we're in a lot better position now because of these principles.
Yeah.
We're not out of debt. We still have debt. But we live comfortably. And as Barb said, we've got money in the bank, we've got money in savings, and we can afford to do things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's probably the one for me is where are you getting your advice from?
Yeah.
The beauty of this program, from Chris and Oren, they're not financial people, that's not their background or their training. So.
No, but they're business people. They've got life experience behind them, which matters.
Exactly. And when you read the book, it's in simple, plain, to understand. Anyone can pick it up and understand it and read it.
Yeah,
and get
absolutely.
It's not
with great supports.
Yeah.
It's got great supports around it as well. So it's not just a book.
No, it's a program, and there's a lot more involved in it. And anyone can pick that up, read it and understand it and apply the principles and can improve their financial position.
Definitely, yeah. And 99 out of 100 people are in the same predicament. Yeah. Listening to themselves in their advice, which is why the sum total of all of our decisions is the results that we have. And understanding that and say, enough, like I want something different. How am I going to get that something different? And working towards that together. And that's one of the things that I love about it too, is that support. If you want to change your situation, you can change your situation, but it's going to take new information, new level of thinking. We can't solve the problem at the same level of thinking that we created it. So we've got to change something to make that different. And getting advice from professionals, having good financial advisors and good financial tax planners and good accountants, good lawyers to help with contracts and preparing for end of life stuff, succession planning, all matters when you're adding it all up. Yeah, I love it. Okay, Barb, so what did you get? What's your best principle you love the most?
And just to know what a good lawyer or solicitor or accountant, what they look like, because you can go to one and they can be good, but if you don't know what good is,
absolutely, they can functionally do the job, but is it the best job for me?
I've got another really good example of that. Actually, I've got a friend who used to have a conventional business, and they worked really hard, husband and wife. They worked very, very hard at what they did, and they were very good at it.
Yeah.
But what they found is that they were working harder and harder and harder, but they were never getting ahead. So they went to their accountant and basically had everything laid out and said, what are we doing wrong? What's going wrong? And he sort of looked at it all, don't really know. Yeah, well, just keep working harder. And they went to 2 or 3 different accountants to finally they got a good accountant who looked at it and said, well, your profit margin, the cost of doing business is 33% of your turnover, and your markup is 30% of your turnover.
Yeah, so you're going backwards every year. And you're not keeping up with inflation either, which is just going to be tragic.
About 3% for every transaction. You're losing 3% for every transaction you do. As soon as that was laid out, but he went through 3 or 4 accountants before someone could put that out there.
I was just astonished.
But as soon as they got that, they go, right, well, straight away, our
price rise. We've got to put it up.
Exactly what they did.
Exactly.
And they had a very profitable business.
Yep.
So for me, there's actually a stack of principles in here that I am.
Give me one.
So the one that I constantly am saying to people, to myself, to TJ, to friends who will say, I had a friend say this to me, that they had just bought this thing. And I said, why did you buy that? And they said, well, because that's all I could get. I'm like, but it's not what you really wanted or need. But it's the only thing it's the only one I could buy. So and that 24-hour rule of waiting 24 hours to buy something. And I said to TJ yesterday, we're walking around the shop and getting Christmas presents, so I already had to figure out what we need to get. And he comes up and because he's got his wallet on him, right? Bad. Walks up and I thought, oh, he's planning on spending. He didn't spend a cent yesterday. I was so proud of him.
That is awesome. It's a research trip. We used to go and window shop a lot. It was the best way to be an educated buyer. And sometimes I'd window shop for 6 months before I'd go in and buy something. But I knew exactly what I wanted when I walked in that shop to buy it.
Exactly.
And I'm a mission shopper as well. Don't waste my time. Look, I've already done the research. Just give it to me. Here's my money. I'm leaving. And that's one of the things in the principles is that educated buyer, waiting, good to great stuff that Chris and Oren talk about. And it's about waiting and having what is actually going to serve your purpose well and encouraging that then and doing without and making do in the meantime, because you're already surviving. You're already doing without it. So having that principle of doing your research and making sure it all comes together and then buy the one that you want. And I love listening to the audio where they were talking about Apple and when Chris and Terry became Apple users and they went down and they waited and they waited and they waited and the laptop died and then they walked in and they went, okay, we're about to be Apple people. I want 2 laptops. I want the best phone. I want top of the range. I want them both now and I want to walk out with them. So like an hour and a half later, 2 hours later or something, they said we walked out Apple people, but we were very intentional, very, very specific about what we wanted. Yep. And we were 100% happy with it. And we are Apple people today. So they just keep upgrading and that because that was what served their purpose right. Okay, Peter, so one of the principles I know that you were working through in being a manager, I have a question about the investing in yourself principle. Yep. So have you found that to be beneficial in your 17 years as a manager? Because I know how we do business has changed so much in 17 years. I know people's expectations of managers have changed over 17 years. So can you just talk about that with us?
Yeah, certainly. So before I was offered the position, I was a technician, so technical sort of type person. And you didn't have to talk with people. All I had to do is know how to fix stuff. And that's what
Dan Hawkins.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Totally.
So I'd sit at the bench and fix stuff. And sometimes, occasionally, I'd talk to the customer. And I didn't have a problem talking to the customer, but it wasn't a requirement of really of what I did. So, to be offered the role of a manager and to do the people side of things at the beginning was a real struggle for me. And the other program that Life Leadership have is the Launching a Leadership Revolution. So that has been invaluable for me, going through that information. And once again, it's a program, reading the books, listening to the audios. So, and just listening to the audios constantly. Anytime I get in the car, I have on my phone, I've got the app, the super app on the phone. So I'm listening to, just lately, I've been listening a lot to Chris Brady. So I go into Rascal Radio, pick Chris Brady and then hit play. And there'll be anything from a financial talk to, a leadership talk to anything at all. So just by listening to those audios, and you never know what you're going to get, of course. So he touches on so many different areas, and that has been really, that's how I've learned all the skills that I've got is through them. So, I've never done any sort of management training. It was discussed at one stage that maybe I should look at it or maybe I should do something about it with my boss, but it never progressed. It never went anywhere. So,
but you are basically, because you're doing that all the time, every day.
Oh, definitely, yeah. But I chose, for myself to go in that and get that information, and it's been invaluable. It's been fantastic.
And that's one of the things I love about a self-directed education is that you get to choose what you need to learn now, what you need, and having access to all of that information helps along that self-directed education, because you learn as you go, and you learn skills that serves you well when you need them in that situation, when you're working with people.
I still do read, and that's really what I've built my, I guess, leadership management skills on, is those books. Certainly one of my goals for next year is to get back into reading, and, again, with intention, not, I'll just put the tick in the box. No, I've read for today. No, that's not the point of it.
Cross it off the list. Yeah.
That's that, just by starting on those books that you do enjoy, it puts you back in the habit of doing it every day. And then you start on your launching a leadership revolution.
I know when I first read it, it is full on. And then I had to break it down and chunk it down and absorb the bits. And putting together like the presentations that I'm working on at the moment, I've had to go back and chunk it down even more to get that learning in, because and I love that we can pick it up, we can discuss it, we can look at it from different angles, we can put it down and pick it up and then get something completely different out of it as well. It is just one of those books that does that. So what kind of recommendations would you have for our viewers? What sort of life learnings and lessons that you would pass on to people?
Get into it, I guess, and humble yourself enough to learn a lesson, I guess. As I said, principle 4 for me was don't take advice from broke people. And I was listening to myself. That's a good thing. Yeah, I need that credit card. No, I don't need that credit card. That's a really bad decision. So get into the book and start small. And some of those things, as you say, the 24-hour rule, and maybe it may not be a 24-hour rule, but if you're in a shopping center and you go, hey, I'm going to go and buy the whatever it is, don't buy it straight away. Walk around the shopping center, even if it's a 24-minute rule.
Yep.
Don't buy it immediately right on the spot there and then. Just go for a quick walk around and come back. And if you still want it, okay, it might only be 24 minutes, not 24 hours, but it makes you stop and think.
Interrupts that pattern.
Yeah, pattern interrupt, Yep.
And it was because of what I had learned about in the financial fitness program about thinking about what you're buying. And I've recommended that to other people.
Intentional.
And I thought, and this is why where people are in the financial position they're in. We are not being taught to think about what we're doing with our money or our life, or don't think about it. Just do what everyone else is doing. Get it on interest free for the next 12 months, 18 months. And at the end of that time, if you haven't paid it, that's okay. You can still pay it off. We're just going to slog you with all the interest for the last 12 months.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
It's all a learning curve. She started learning these principles too and applying them. It's exciting to see. That's probably the big.
And that's a great thing, because it is about the recovery. It is about the steps in place and applying those principles. It is about learning to get stronger with those muscles. And that's exactly what the financial fitness program's for, which is great. Excellent. Thank you very much for your time today. Greatly appreciate it.
Not a problem, Sarah. Happy to share.